Here comes 21-2, my friends. So, how are we dealing with it? So here's the breakdown. You remember we just talked about integrated pest management? When we talk about waste, we can talk about integrated waste management, IWM. And so how should we handle waste management? Well, here are your raw materials that you have. It goes to the processing and manufacturing phase, which ends up producing products, right? Now, part of this process will produce solid and hazardous waste. Now, some of that might be recycled. A lot of it might be thrown into hazardous waste management, and then some can be just put in the old landfill or regular mixed into the wasteland. So that can happen. Once the product's been used, then that's the waste generated by the household and businesses. Some of that will get recycled. Some will be food and yard waste, right? Some will go into regular trash. Some will go into hazardous waste. From there, there's lots of choices of things that can happen. If it's one of these, we don't think of these as quite as good. We think of these green ones as better. So if it goes from recycling, it can be reused or recycled and move its way back up into this processing and manufacturing phase, which is what we hope to have happen. If it's food and yard waste, it can be composted or turned into fertilizer, which then can be reused. If it goes into one of these categories, not so much so. So if it has just waste management, it's taken to a specific site and treated with the utmost of care and stored. It gets thrown in a landfill, just throw a pile of trash, or it gets burned, which creates its own kind of issues. So all of these have environmental issues with them that we're not interested in. These are the better way to go. But I will say, as part of integrated waste management, on some level you got to use them all. But the idea is that you use less of these and more of those. So how do we handle that? Well, we have to prioritize what we're doing. So when we prioritize it, the number one first priority we should do is prevent waste generation. Use less stuff. If you can do that, that's going to solve most of your problems and help you out the most. Then second, we're going to choose to reuse, recycle, and compost materials. If we can do that, that helps out. And then the last priority is then try to deal with whatever waste is generated. And if we use that philosophy, we'll be able to greatly reduce the amount of waste that we're producing. So, generally speaking, it is always best to prevent the waste from being produced in the first place, which is the first thing. Just don't let it happen in the first place, and then it's not an issue. And so when we actually then have to deal with the waste, the 3 R's come in mind. Oh, the 3 R's. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. And by the way, these are the order of priority as well. And there's actually a 4th R, but we'll get into this. Reduce is first and foremost. Don't use as much junk. That's the best way to help the thing. Second best way is reuse it in its original state. It takes no extra energy or pollution to change its form. So that is better. And then third is recycling. Recycling is the worst of those 3 choices because it requires extra energy and it creates more pollution in the recycling process. The fourth thing you can add in is refuse, which is don't buy items that we really don't need or ones that generate lots of waste. So you can reduce, reuse, recycle, refuse. All right. So what can you do? Here are some things that you can do specifically. You can follow the 3 R's. You can ask yourself whether you really need that item or not. Or you can just offer not to take the packaging with the item. You can rent and borrow goods. That helps solve the problem. You can buy things that specifically have been reduced and reused and recycled. You can avoid anything that's disposable and easily thrown away. You can use emails and electronic messaging as opposed to paper. You can read everything that you need to read online. You can buy products from Sam's in bulk. All ways to solve the problem.